I hate soccer.
I knew you. And then I saw you up there. I'm like, oh! And, okay, what exactly is your role with MLS Next?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on, Jason.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here. My role is manager of coaching education and player development in Major League Soccer. And when I say that to people, it's like, well, what does that entail? And it is a lot. It basically, in terms of the first piece is coaching education, and if we have better coaches, in theory we should have better players, or at least improve the player experience. But
right.
It's a job that takes me from the grassroots with MLS Go. There's some involvement with MLS Next, and obviously MLS Next then feeds into MLS Next Pro in the first team. So that pro player pathway, how we develop players, how we're developing coaches is very important to the overall quality of the league.
How long have you been in this role?
3 years in January.
3 years. Okay.
Before that, I was a college coach. I coached in the MLS Next Academy as well. I was 4 years as an assistant coach at Southern Connecticut State, Division 2 program. 4 years as the head coach at Manhattanville University. And then this opportunity came up at the league. It was a newly created position. And at that time in my career, I kind of reached a bit of a standstill, a bit of stagnation maybe.
Right.
And it was a role that seemed really interesting to me, and obviously knew who Fred Lipka was, the Vice President for Youth Development, and it was a role that really intrigued me in terms of the potential impact you can play in the player development pathway. So, yeah, 3 years, really enjoying it. Every day is it's a wonderful opportunity, and it's every day is a different challenge, and the great thing is there's many different facets to the job, so it keeps it interesting.
So you coached in the MLS Next. Did you coach in the DA?
No, I didn't at that point. I was coaching youth teams, but they weren't in the DA.
Okay, because I was wondering, and I've talked to Luis about this a little bit. It's just like, what were the major differences in when MLS Next was created versus the DA? I talked to Fred about this as well.
Yeah.
And I've already heard how much more you guys are doing in the coaching education space with all the MLS Next coaches. And it's like, and I always just thought, hey, US Soccer, and they're in charge of, the coaching education, but what are you guys doing to kind of go above and beyond?
Yeah, I think we work very collaboratively with US Soccer. I mean,
right.
It has to be about collaboration. I mean, ultimately,
it has to be.
They're the federation, and they're the governing body that grants licenses. Our job there is to supplement and try to provide opportunities for coaches. So the CPD program, or continuous professional development, is essentially any opportunity that a coach has to go develop themselves.
Right.
And so when we launched the program, the idea was to be as inclusive, as accessible as possible. That was supposed to be tied to the continuing education units, where if you had a C license and above,
yep.
I believe that's still in progress at the moment. But for us, it was how can we create opportunities that can be meaningful for coaches when we launched the program, and it's creating a sense of community as well. There is a community out there of coaches and soccer professionals that have that mindset to get better every day, and it's wonderful because ultimately it's going to impact the players and their experience.
How do you guys provide the education? Is it virtual? Is it in person? Is it all of the above? Is it speaker series, kind of like what we were doing here? Go on to how you can touch like every single coach in this. I mean, how many coaches are in the MLS Next right now?
I'd say around like 4,000 coaches, and to answer your question, Jason, we've only really just scratched the surface. We launched this program 3 years ago, and in the beginning I don't think many people really knew what it is we're doing and why we're doing it, but I think now, coming into the third year of this, I think we're really gaining traction and momentum, and there's a couple of facets to that. So the in-person programming, for the most part, we'll do in alignment with the major events in MLS Next. So first is the first one of the season,
right?
And then in the second half of the year we have GA Cup, we have Flex, and we have Cup. So what we try to do is organise in-person coaching education courses, because coaches' time is limited, their time is at a premium. So how can we be efficient with that time. And if they have to travel to coach in games and in tournaments, then why can't we add? Where can we add value? We do offer online courses. We did in association with Allstate, we did the goalkeeping webinar series, and that was attended by people globally. We had great representation from our own ecosystem in Next, and each of the presenters also had experience coaching in MLS Next and now the MLS Next Pro or first teams that went through that coaching pathway. So there's a real connection there, but we want to expand, we want to grow, and you see this event here. I mean, the speaker series is just another piece of that added value. What can we bring that can offer more opportunities to the coaches, and the speaker series indeed for the players and for the parents as well.
Right. What is the biggest focus in your coaching education for all of the existing staff of all the MLS Next clubs?
There's a few pieces to that. For us, we have many experts and people working at a really high level in our clubs, and so Fred and I, part of the strategy is leaning on that expertise. We look at current trends of the game, and we also have to think about the game of the future and emerging trends. How does that relate to our coaches here, but even beyond the MLS Next ecosystem? As the highest professional league in this country, we want to be the leader in the coaching education space. We want to lead by example, and our belief is that our clubs and in their communities can also take the lead in that space in player education, parent education, developing their coaches, upskilling their coaches, and that's how we want to see this continue to evolve. At the moment, we try to organise our courses. It could be game model development, it could be individual player development, like I'm speaking specifically to this week. We also had a CPD centred around scouting and relative age effect with US soccer, so again that collaboration piece. We piloted and launched for the first time the Minded Performance Culture course with Dr. Jake Naish, an expert in human science who's worked at San Diego FC and the Right to Dream programme. So we try to identify what are areas of the game and skill sets that coaches and technical leaders need to be the best professional versions of themselves.
So at night, especially here, like around sunset, that's my favorite time to be around, and I'm just walking. I'll walk by the pro player pathway, but then I go and I try to see a little bit from every single field, and I notice that now the quality of the individual player might not all be the same, but the style, I see that the style is very, very similar. I'm not seeing a whole bunch of different styles. Is that part of your long-term goal? Because I remember when Spain won and Pep was the biggest thing, and everybody wanted to play that exact same style, and then some federations were like, everybody needs to play 4-3-3. Do you do any of that, or do you just let each club kind of do their own thing as long as the standard is high?
Yeah, I think clubs have autonomy to play in the way that they want to play, have a philosophy, their game model, their methodology for developing players. I think they should have ownership of that, because there's beauty in different forms of the game, and there's no one way to develop players, there's no one way to win games. So what works for everybody is slightly different. In terms of your observations of the games, it's interesting, because I think in the youth development space we look for how are players developing their capacity to attack and defend 1v1. In my opinion, the game is always going to be a function of time and space.
Yes.
And with and without the ball, how you manipulate that time and space with players, numbers, the position of the players ultimately makes the difference. I think when you look at games of soccer, you can win the game from a physical sense, you can win the game from a tactical sense in terms of where our numbers positioned, like create a 2v1 here or a 3v2 here. And then the third thing is the technical aspect. Are you better technically, or it's a combination of the three? So it's an interesting question, and I don't know if I have a complete answer for you.
Right.
But overall, I would say I think that teams, uniformity, I don't really think shows the value. You need to be able to play against different styles, different challenges, and especially in the youth development space, that's what players should be exposed to.
They need to be able to adapt.
Absolutely, adaptability.
And within a game. And sometimes, now I'm not saying like change anything, but sometimes they need to be able to change on their own without being coach led. If you understand what I'm saying, like I saw. So it's funny when goals are scored, right? Because everybody has their own thing. Everybody goes to the corner flag, but there's some. I want to say it was Columbus Crew. They all of their backline players and their goalkeeper goes directly to the coach, and that's something that really stood out to me was that attention. It's attention to detail, and I feel like most of what I've seen so far this week is attention to detail at a high level. And how we just, I say we, you guys just grew with the academy being added, or the academy division being added. How do you educate not only the coaches but the parents of why do we have game models? Why is it like this? Why do we do that? Any thought into that?
In sense of how we are
how are you guys communicating to the coaches to communicate to the parents of why things that they're doing? Because I know some clubs that do game model and the parents don't understand why. And how do we set the standards, or how do you guys set the standards for the entire system?
I think from a coaching education piece, we design courses that hopefully are relevant to what we see in the modern game, whether it's game model development, individual player development, tactical concepts. We can develop these courses, but ultimately how the coaches take that back and apply that in environments is the most important thing. And we don't sit here saying we have all of the answers. What we want to do is create an environment of engagement, discussion, collaboration amongst these coaches, that when they get into similar rooms with similar people, that's where the magic, I think, happens. That's where the magic happens in terms of, us as the leaders. We create the environments. We create the environments for the people to come, and hopefully they go back to their clubs and they can educate, a wider audience. And we can only take 25 to 30 people in the in-person courses, because we feel like any more than that in some cases you're not getting the value or the expertise of the instructors. But our goal is the ratio, absolutely. So it's you want to expand that scope of influence, and that's a challenge for us. How do we scale that, and how do we get the best practices? How do we get the experts that come and present for us to? How do we get that message to a wider audience? So that's certainly the challenge. But you see here in terms of the atmosphere and the environment, everything's geared towards developing players at a high level and equipping the players for the high level. So part of that strategy, and currently I'm taking the Elite Formation coaching license. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's a license that MLS and the French Football Federation joined together. And so that methodology, you look at the guys who've come through this course. You look at Greg Varney, Wilfred Nancy, Coach of the Year, guys that have won the MLS have come through with this methodology, and you can already see the impact it's had on the game and on our league. But everything is designed to stimulate the players and engage the players to reach their highest potential and play it and meet the demands of the game at the highest level.
That was going to be my next question, is what other countries do you guys try to incorporate into your coaching education, if any?
Yeah, you mentioned the one style of play. Like I do remember the DA. It seemed that at that time a lot of teams were playing 4-3-3, and that was to stimulate individual duels, so that you could develop 1v1 type situations in the players. But well, I do see a value to that. At times, I always felt like in the back four there was one centre back that was always free when they were defending and potentially when they were attacking. So there's two schools of thought. Yeah, that's okay, but didn't see a lot of teams playing with a back three. So then the defenders weren't always defending individually. To me, youth development, in my opinion, is it's almost like school. You learn how to do addition and subtraction in first grade. Second grade, okay, we add on division and multiplication, and you start to build the pieces. I think youth development is the same, but ultimately, I think that players, you need to be able to learn how. If you're just for talking sake a defender, you need to learn how to defend playing in a high block, a low block, playing in a back three, a back four, a back five, against two strikers, three strikers, because wherever you go.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode of the I Hate Soccer podcast. If you feel stuck in your recruiting process, we created a guide that includes feedback from 15 college coaches and 10 current college soccer players. Inside this guide, you'll find out what really works in recruiting, from showcases, ID camps, highlight reels, and more. Check it out at playmakertraining.com/recruited. This episode is brought to you by Grips Soccer Socks. Guys, stop spending $55 on a pair of socks when there are other options available. Grips Soccer was founded by a father and son who were sick of paying $55 for socks. Go to gripsoccer.com and use promo code IHateSoccer for 15% off. That's gripsoccer.com, promo code IHateSoccer.
You have the knowledge, you have the skills to adapt to each of those environments that you're going to play.
When the DA started, there used to be an anti-low block. We're not allowed to bunker. You guys have to open up and play. Sometimes some of the federation, this is what I've been told, and I was an assistant with the DA, but nothing like I never interacted with any of the U.S. staff or anything like that. But if you were to say, guys, no bunkering, you're not allowed to bunker, well then you just took away that opportunity for a team to learn how to break down a bunker.
Sure.
Because I think that's actually what we lack in this country, from the most part, is being able to calmly and quickly break down an organized defense. And I think that's what is missing with the American player for the most part.
We talk about these things all the time, Jason. The hardest thing in the game is to do what? It's to score.
Absolutely. That's why there's only 0-0 and there's 1-1 and yeah.
And then you have a team. So when we design our coaching courses, we look at what problem is the game presenting to us. Okay, we're playing against a compact block and organised defensively. They're limiting the space in behind. So now, what principle can you connect that's going to give the tools to the players to solve that problem? Now, in this specific instance that we're talking about, a low block, okay, you can disrupt them by dribbling and pull defenders off their line. Quick combination play to destabilise. It might have to be a run from a deeper position, so like the winger's on the same height as the defensive line. He might not be the guy that you get in, but it might be a run coming from a deeper position. And then most goals in football are scored from the assist zone, that space between like the edge of the 6-yard box and the 18-yard box. So how do you get into those areas? That's a higher percentage of where the assist is going to come from. But if you're playing against a low block and they're compact centrally, the team might not give you that first entry pass into that area.
Yeah.
So are you drawing them out to then play behind? Are you playing around them to get in behind? Are you disrupting? Or the last one that I think, you talk about trends in the game, players that can shoot from distance. Because if I have time and space against a low block and you have a player that has the capacity to shoot from 25 yards, it provokes somebody to come off the line. If you know that somebody's a threat to get something on target or score goals from distance with their shots, it's going to provoke a reaction in the other team. And that's the game of football. It's the power balance. It's the at what moment, and it changes like 400 to 500 times in a game. Like every decision is the power of balance is always shifting. It's always changing. So we think, a great discussion with Fred last night, like developing strikers in this country. I think looking ahead to the GA Cup, I think Fred will be back on the pitch. Just in terms of how we're developing strikers to combat problems like this, strikers against a low block, and the profile of the striker, because if there's limited space in behind, it might not be the guy that's got pace and can run into the depth. It might be the guy that has to come and show short to combine to break the last line. So we look at these trends of the game, and then we think about, okay, in our coaching education courses, can we first of all identify the problem? Secondly, what are some solutions to this problem? The pitch is where you put the work in to experiment and find those answers, and then you conclude if it's been successful or not.
How do you make sure that coaches don't leave out the individual, where they're getting too focused on the team tactics and the group dynamic, and they forget the individual player, especially at like some of the smaller clubs? How do you make sure that like the technical standards of what's needed to be able to play? Because I've always said that to be able to have advanced tactics, you have to have advanced technique. And I'm not talking, everybody thinks, parents, everybody thinks that, a step over and scissor, that's technique. No, it's not. That's not technique. It's first touch. It's always receiving with the outside of your foot instead of just letting it come across your body. It's, and I've seen it a couple of times where there's a goal scoring opportunity, but the ball is on their ugly foot, on their wrong foot, and then they try to cut back to their favorite foot, and then the opportunity is lost. Like, how do we make sure that the technical component isn't forgotten?
It's in the session plan and in the session design and individual. Our philosophy is you have to develop the individual within the collective. That's what youth development is. You're developing the individual within the collective. So then when you think about, okay, your topic or what problem you're trying to solve, who are the key players? Who are the key players that we're influencing there? Now, in the demands of the session, what are some of the key techniques or the key behaviours or key actions that you're looking for them to implement, and even provide a challenge in that? So when I talk about the EFCL course, the methodology, you have 3 teaching pedagogies, and as the coach, that elicits a different behaviour. So, for example, the discovery game, and it was something that John Cogentini and Elliot Prost, who were here this week, did a session on, is how you use constraints, like a constraints-led approach, to manipulate the behaviour of the players. So, for example, let's say you play an 8v8 game with a neutral player. You tell the neutral player, if you're facing your own goal, you can only play off one touch. If you turn your body to open up and face the opponent's goal, we'll give you unlimited touches. So now you observe the player behaviour. You observe, and what you should hope to see is the player wants unlimited touches. So you start to see them between lines and
checking the shoulder.
Behind lines, shoulders are open, exactly. And you observe to see if that constraint has influenced the player, and how does it influence the game, how does it influence the opponent. A tactical situation, so as the coach you're more observational, but you still have to be ready to come in with things that can influence if you're not getting out of that what you're looking to see. The tactical situation, you have to be more of a sniper. Smaller numbers, so it could be no more than, say, 6v5, like 5v4 or 4v3, like those types of numbers. And you're looking for very specific things. If this happens, then that. If that happens, then that, and that's it, and you're a sniper. The technical exercise, which is really interesting, as a and I wish I knew this, and it's obviously development. As a coach, I really struggled with pattern play or passing exercises without purpose, like player A passes to B, B passes to C. There's no decision for the players, the decision's been made for them. How do you start to blend the technical to cognitive to tactical, because I think every passer there's a tactical intention behind it. And to your point, you're absolutely right, Jason. Technique links to tactics. What's the tactical intention of the player? Because it could dribble past you, it could have a different impact, or it could pass the ball past you. It's a different implication based on that tactical intention. So you really have to demand technique of the highest level. So the details that you're talking about, the speed of the ball, the distance of the first touch, the direction of the first touch, because then that starts to impact the players around the ball. Give you an example, right centre back plays it to the left centre back. If he takes his touch to the outside, that might trigger different movements from the exterior players. If the centre back takes his touch into inside, then it starts to impact the players in the central, but it's based on the choice of that player. And you don't really see that in games, like player A passes to player B, plays it. That's just not how it works. It's based on cues, it's based on the notion of choice, and that's the game, isn't it? It's a collection of decisions. But to answer your point about the technique, you can train in different ways. You can train technique in isolation, but I think we try to take a more associated approach. So the intention and the planning of your warm-up, for example, if it's a passing exercise to break lines, then you probably want players that are receiving on the move, and the design of that and the intention behind that has to be very, very clear. So there's efficiency in terms of the training, but you're also really, really linking that to player actions, your IDPs, your individual development plans for players, and obviously your high potential players as well. You want to get them in situations that they have to experience to practice and be able to master.
It's almost like at the highest level, technique and tactics are the same, because, or they're one. They're not the same, but they're one, because like what you just said, if I take that touch there, well, is that a technique or is that a decision, a tactical decision? So
it's very much like each other.
So really, at the highest level. Now, at the lower, youth level, a kid might make a tactical error because their first touch was terrible, and then that becomes a technical error or issue. If that makes sense. Can you go into game model a little bit, like what, or periodization?
Yeah.
What do you want? Do you want every club within the MLS Next to practice periodization and schedule out, or?
I think every club's periodisation is going to be different, and the game model and the periodisation links. I mean, when people, it's almost like buzzwords, game model. To me, in the simplest sense, a game model is whatever moment of the game we have attacking, defending, or the two transition moments, what area of the pitch we're in, that all the players collectively know how they're trying to solve that tactical or the problem that the game's presenting them. That to me is a game model. I think we get a little bit hung up on that. I struggle personally in my coaching career of what is a game model, and somebody explained it to me once and said, right, imagine your team tries to score a goal. How would you want them to score it? My interpretation of that could be completely different to you.
Absolutely.
And then that starts to connect to styles of play. Like you look like an Arsenal, for example. In the 2000s, it would be free-flowing passing, almost they'd walk the ball into the net, and then you've got teams who would play direct into a striker, knock it down and shoot.
It's like United, the 4-4-2, and yeah.
It doesn't mean to say that one is right or one is wrong, and that's which makes our game the absolute best in the world, is that there's no right or wrong way to do things, but you have to be authentic to yourself. And I struggled with this as well. Like there was a period of time where everybody wanted to play at the back like Barcelona, everybody wanted to press like Chile. You had that everybody wants to defend in a low block like Chelsea, but is it authentic to the players that you're coaching? Is it authentic to you as a person? And somebody explained it to me. It was like, imagine your team scores a goal, how would they score it? So for me, it was always about like, how can we get forward as quickly as possible, but but mostly on the ground, like playing through teams or playing around teams. And once we got into those areas, being really efficient, like how can we get to the goal? Other people, it's like their idea of that is okay. The goalkeeper launches it, the striker flicks it on, somebody runs it behind, and we score.
Yeah.
Who am I to say, oh, that's not the right way to play? But there is a little bit of a snobbery, I would say, about that kind of game model.
Ego, kind of.
Yeah. But you have to be authentic to what you want. You have to be. I think that's a part that's still developing. We're starting to see it though with our clubs. There's real identity in the clubs and how they're playing, and that takes time. And football clubs are. You know, we talk about clubs like Ajax or Barcelona. Football clubs are deeply immersed within the culture, and how are there's real synergy between that. There's real synergy between how a football club plays and how it connects to the overall community, and that to me has to be authentic to me. That's game models. Periodization, again, it's a model. It's a model. There's physical periodization and then there's tactical periodization.
Right.
To me, I think you always have to try to integrate them. To give you an example of that, obviously space, like, as the coach you're able to manipulate that, like space, time, rounds and numbers. You obviously have a seasonal plan, you have a monthly plan, a weekly plan. The US is certainly unique in terms of the size of the country. You've got time zones, there's a lot of factors that goes into that. But to me, always the physical aspect always has to be linked to the principle and the tactical intention. So when you look at a principle such as breaking the last line at speed, then you need your 10s and your 7s high speed running over like 20-30 metres to break the last line at speed. So now your session planning has to stimulate those types of situations. So I think sometimes people, the physical periodization, and you have days for strength, days for endurance, days for speed. You do have to have that blend, but it also has to relate to your style of play. You know, you have teams that are pressing teams, high pressing teams, so it's a lot of short distance sprints, accelerations, decelerations. Then you might have a team who's very side to side when they play to try and unbalance the opponent, so maybe more endurance based. But it has to be, again, aligned to your vision, your values, your how you want to play.
What trends do you expect? Because it seems like every World Cup year, or maybe sometimes Euros as well, the world changes. Every single time there's a World Cup and we change the style of play, or everybody tries to, it's a copycat sport. Everybody wants to, you know, when it was Barcelona, it was Barcelona. When Chile in that World Cup, what was it, 2014? Maybe, I forget. That all of a sudden everybody was playing a back three just because Chile did that. What do you expect is going to happen, and do you think that we'll try to kind of like piggyback off of that, or as a country, or?
Well, I don't know, as you've outlined there, Jason, the game evolves. So what I will say is, if a trend emerges, the evolution of that trend and how people adapt to it, I think catches up very quickly. It's why a certain style, a certain way of playing, I don't think anybody ever reinvents the game. I don't think anybody, you have pioneers, you have the Guardiolas, but I don't think anybody reinvents the game. But what I would say is that if a trend emerges and you have that copycat type thing, the game is always evolving, and I think what we've always in mind, like preparing for the game for the future. What's that going to look like? I think less time and space, because players are going to be able to cover more distance, more faster, stronger,
bigger. Yeah.
But the cognitive aspect, how are you training players cognitively? Scanning's another big topic, but intentional scanning, like what are you, critical scanning, what are players doing in the immediate 2-3 seconds before they're receiving the ball? Because that time is getting shorter and shorter. Space is at an absolute premium, especially at the highest level. I think more and more now we'll start to see that there's going to come back a demand. The individual duels, 1v1, attacking and defending. You have to be a good attacker 1v1 and you have to be a good defender 1v1. Because the organisations and teams are so good. You look at like the Euros and teams that ordinarily 10-15 years ago that's an easy win. It's no longer an easy win because they're organised and they're hard to beat, and so you need to find the solutions to that. And that's what makes this game fascinating.
Do you think so? The game always evolves tactically, but the requirement, technically, has always almost been the same.
Yeah.
If you think about like, there's videos of Pele doing the things that we see Ronaldo do, or we see Messi do, or Maradona and Messi, probably a better comparison. And it's like, okay, so in the 50 years, technically, there hasn't been a lot of changes. It's the tactics. It's the decision making. It's the closing down, because these guys are closing down so quickly that you have to know what you're going to do with the ball before you get it. Probably 2 passes before you get it. So I'm very intrigued to see how it goes, but with it being a copycat sport, I'm not even talking about maybe necessarily led by MLS coaching education or U.S. soccer coaching education. It's the coaches in the middle of Nebraska trying to copy whatever they see, whoever's going to be the surprise. Like, do you remember when Iceland did their thing in the Euros and they came out of nowhere? Then all of a sudden we're all going to Iceland to what's going on? What are they doing differently? And then you get there and you're watching their sessions. It's like, I literally do everything that they're doing, so it's not necessarily coaching. It's that it's so much smaller and easier to identify top players.
There's top players in this country, but the USA is just a unique country. It's so big. Again, that authenticity piece is there's 2 ways to look. What players do you have? Who are the players in front of you? What are their specific skills or specific talents? So you start to go down a path of recruitment and identifying talent for how you want to play.
Right.
But do you build the team around the players, or do you have to find players that fit your system? And sometimes it's somewhere in the middle. It's you can make a case for either or, but both of them. But the case is, like you say, it's constantly evolving. Something next, and that's what keeps it interesting.
And that's what keeps it amazing, because you're always trying to catch up. Do you see the United States having a style of play, or do you believe that we have a style of play?
I do. I think Mauricio Pochettino, top coach. I think the challenge in that is, again, like we have a vast variety of players within here, and I think we're starting to see Mauricio really implement like a style of playing and identity on the team. But that style and identity, how that faces up to other styles and identities, that's the test of the game.
Do you think that we'll have a style that can transcend and go from coach to coach as a more of a whole nation style? Because what's our style? It's always been grit and persistence and never say die attitude or whatever. Sure. That is really our style of play. Do you ever see that we can impact the rest of the world like a Spain did 15 years ago? Do you ever think that we could get there?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not? Because I think other countries are maybe ahead in terms of their history of the game. Maybe the culture is in advance, but the US is catching up, and I don't see why not. If we're having this conversation in 10-15 years to say, you know what, the US has influenced the game in a positive way. And people are looking at us in our player development and our coach development and saying, yeah, you know what, they're getting a lot right. That's something that we can look at. Yeah, I don't see why not.
Do you think? Okay. Where do we lack with our coaches? Because again, we would go to Iceland and we're doing the exact same stuff. We're, trying to do everything that other countries are doing, but it's just the player identification, the size, the culture, the first, second, third generation players over there. Most of our best players that are here are probably mostly first or second generation soccer players. Everybody in Europe are mostly like third, fourth, maybe even sometimes fifth generation soccer players right now. Why is Christian Pulisic one of our best players ever? His dad played and his mom played at a pretty high level. Why is Timothy Weah one of our best players ever? Well, his dad. You know what I mean? Say what you will, Gio Reyna. His dad's pretty good. You know what I mean?
It's generational, yeah, absolutely. I think the other countries generationally, it's been in their blood for over nearly 2 centuries, maybe a century and a half. In terms of playing competitive football, soccer. Yeah.
So, I actually talked to.
Sorry, to answer your question, but the coaching development aspect is huge. I think it's still somewhat of a missing piece in the US, and there's many dynamics to that. I mean, I think some coaches they might have 2 or 3 teams. They might have administrative roles in their clubs, and they're pulled in maybe 3 or 4 different directions. What that could maybe take away of is the intentionality of the session plan and developing the players. I still think very much there's a culture of, especially in the youth development space, and this is something that I went through as a coach, is that such pressure to win at under 12s. And you look at Fred and Louise and Mark Shields, who you just spoke to, and Taka, in terms of the quality of play index which we implemented for the under 13s and under 14s. It wasn't a case of we're not keeping the standings of who wins and losses, but who wins and loses. Sorry, this is a way to measure styles of play and player development against other teams, and we're not afraid to take those risks. Because ultimately, youth development, I don't think coaches, you're judged on your results of how many games you win and lose at U12. Player development is about your work will be judged when the player is ready to turn professional or ready to turn college, and their pathway to get to that point. The aspect of winning and losing at those younger ages, I don't think. When you look at ages and stages of development, at 5 or 6 years old, it's the love to play. I don't think that ever leaves you. We love to play, but progressively as you go through the ages and stages of development, then you start to learn to compete. Then you have to train to win when you get to 15, 16, 17. But yeah, ultimately, how we want to know who's the best team at playing out the back against a high press, who's the best team at breaking the last line against a low block. Because that gives us information, and then it starts to guide us in what our players need and what our coaches need.
What goes into your role as, I guess, observing would be the word? Observing coaches in your league?
I don't know if I can answer that, because I would say that Fred and our head of the EFCL John Argentini, when he comes here, they will have key clarity and observation of what they're looking for in terms of the coaching behaviour. For me, I think at this moment in my career, maybe not quite there yet to evaluate. Currently still taking this course as a coach myself, so I don't think a coaching journey is like point A to point B and there's an end. You're always constantly evaluating. I think when I look at coaches, I observe them in a sense of what can I learn, and that's the community we're trying to create. I think there's been a little bit, when I think about my career, Jason, it was so hard for me as a young aspiring coach to find the top environments where the top coaches are working, to go and watch them work. That's the best advice I could give to young coaches or any coaches watching this. If you want to coach, you have to go see and go put yourself in environments where the best are working. And my job is I've been very, very fortunate to do that, whether it's here in the US, being able to travel to France and see that. It's getting yourself in those environments where you're learning, and we're trying to create those environments here, and that's how it should be. But it wasn't always accessible. You really had to work hard to find that environment. Or how can it was almost like, and I also think there was, and it's getting better, this environment of, I have the secret sauce, I'm keeping it, I'm guarding it.
Exactly. That's why I started this podcast. It's like, stop. You're not, like you said, you're not reinventing the game. You're not reinventing the wheel. Why are you hiding it? It's the ego.
And us, it's not like MLS and MLS coaching education sitting up on the parapet saying, we know everything, here's how you should do it, this is what we want our teams to do. It's not the case. There has to be input from the coaching and the player. What are you experiencing? How can we serve you? What are things that you're observing? How it's a collective effort to improve this environment, but ultimately it's the players who we want to serve and who we want to make sure it's beneficial for them. Ultimately, that's why we do what we do. So for me in this job, very, very important, and that's our kind of philosophy is open door. We're just exchanging ideas. It's a community of exchange. It's a community of collaboration. It's a community of openness. And it's not like this is it. This is the only way. That's because you're setting yourself up for failure with that. You're setting yourself up for failure.
Talk about what you're doing today with the coaching clinic for players, wasn't it?
Yeah, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal initiative. We've had over 100 under 17s and 19 players, over 100 players over the course of the weekend, taking their first steps into coaching. We collaborated. It was an idea that Luis Robles and Fred Litka had. While they're here, why don't we do a grassroots license? 77 and 99 grassroots licenses for the 17s and 19s players on the left end. And we've had over 100 coaches here, and kudos to the kids because, I know me as a 16 or 17 year old, I have a day off. I'm not thinking about maybe taking a coaching course, but that mindset and that mentality of the kids gives us energy because it's like they're taking the time to go develop themselves, and we see them as the future leaders of the game, whether that's in coaching positions, technical leadership positions, and they'll come away from this weekend hopefully being able to apply some of the skills and the competencies that they've learned. And the amazing thing is, Jason, is these kids are playing at a good level. They understand what I've said this weekend is that they understand the game.
Yeah.
Now the expertise is how do I share that? How do I transmit that information to maybe, so for example, the smaller weight U9, U10 girls team.
Okay.
So I maybe don't often coach a team of that age group, so it's a challenge in the coach. How do I communicate? How is my body language? How is my demeanour? And so these skill sets that the players have learned this weekend so invaluable, and this is something we're going to continue because I think it will help their playing. Because when you think about the coaching aspect, it definitely improves you as a player, and that's we want players who have played the game or who are playing the game potentially developing the future coaches.
I think it makes you more coachable too.
100%.
It's just like, man, those 9-year-olds are ridiculous. I feel bad for my coach because I know what I put him through.
Yeah, and more appreciation for my coach. Yeah.
But, and so I just had Jordan Allen on, and he got injured, or he found out that he had like cartilage damage at 22 in both knees, and he had to quit playing, and he's been coaching ever since. And it's like when your time is over as a player, you kind of lose the self-identity. And I talked to Andrew about this too, is that you identify as a soccer player. I'm a soccer player. And then it's gone. And then you don't have it. If we had more coaches that were coaching while still playing, that transition might be even quicker and healthier. without maybe the mental health component of that. You know what I mean? So I think what you guys are doing is genius. And what 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 would be next? Let's say, yeah, you're gonna do this every single year. But what about the guys that had just took this? Are you gonna provide something else maybe next year? Like, okay, so they did this. Now maybe it's a, I don't know what it would look like, but have you thought about that, or where it can lead?
Yeah, it's like you if you're standing still, you're not developing. We're always thinking about ideas. What's next? What's next? And for
That's why
some of these kids some of the players have come this weekend. Some of them will have earned their grassroots license because you need two. You have the 4v4, 7v7, 9v9 or 11v11. So any combination of the two, in addition to the online course,
right.
12 months elapses, and then you can start to pursue your D license. Some kids who are based on their schedule, they can maybe only get to one. Hopefully they go back to their home environments, whether that's with a local state association, it might be one of our MLS clubs or MLS Next Elite Academies who run a grassroots license. They can finish that there. So we're always thinking about ways that we can evolve, develop, improve. So the wheels are in motion. I know for the GA Cup we'll start to think about offering grassroots courses again, Flex Cup as well. Yeah, so these are ideas that the wheels are already in motion in the background.
Brilliant. I mean, when did you start coaching? Like, when did you stop playing and really start coaching?
It's probably the reason I got into coaching, Jason, was so I grew up in Scotland, and I played for a club called Derry United, and I was in their academy from about the age of 13. They had a really good academy at that time. Good local talent in the region of Ayrshire. The first team at that time were pushing towards the Scottish Premier League at that time. They made some cup finals, and they played against like the big team. They played against I think Rangers in the cup final. They played against maybe Celtic in a semi-final. But there was a real push to get to the Premier League. Their stadium infrastructure held them back. So I turned professional at 16, but I always had amazing support from my parents, and one of the discussions that they had with me was, we want to help you pursue your dream, and they allowed me to do that. I'm forever grateful for that, but you also need to have that backup plan, so you need to stay enrolled in school. So I studied sports science. That helped me as a player, like in terms of my diet, my preparation, my nutrition, how I was lifting, just the understanding of the physiological aspects of the game. I think at that time for me though, Scottish football was massively underfunded, and after about 4 years, I maybe a handful of first team appearances, I was out on loan quite a lot. I had an injury, I think in maybe my 4th year. A new coach came in, and club and we're moving in a different direction. So I really had to reflect on that. It was a disappointment because all my life I wanted to be a professional player, and I did it, but I wouldn't say, I never reached the highest level. So from then I kind of looked at the scholarship route in the US, and it was something that changed my life. At that point I probably wasn't enjoying my football. I came to the US and played at Southern Connecticut, and it reinvigorated again my love for the game. It was a programme that under coach Tom Lang played a great style of football, and I enjoyed it. And I studied as a PE teacher. So I taught PE for a few years, but I found I was missing the game on a Saturday, and it's always in my blood. And I got back into coaching, went back to coaching my alma mater, started taking my licences. But one of the things was I felt a little bit let down and it could have been related to the what I mentioned about the game being massively underfunded, but when I look at the resources available to the kids in our academies, the level of expertise in the coaching, individual development coaches, video analysis, performance coaches, we have people like Andrea who work on the mental performance of the game. Very few, if any, of these resources were available to me as a player, so I always try to approach coaching as I want my players to have the best possible experience that they can. I'm not always going to be perfect in getting them that, but how can I ensure that they have an environment that they come in saying that they enjoy every day? That's very important. So that got me into coaching. And the question that people ask all the time is, are you going to get back into coaching? I get asked this question like all the time.
I was actually going to ask that.
Oh, you're joking. And the question is, I don't know. I think when I was a young coach, I always seemed to be in a rush. It was like, right, I have my C license. I need to get my B. You know
Yes.
what? You need to. But the growth is. The growth is in the process and in the journey. It's almost like I feel as if there's a culture of, right, I have my license, and it's like the experiences have to befit the license. Like when you learn to drive, you get your license. But after the fact, how many hours of driving experience do you have in your life now? That befits the license that you have to drive, and I don't see it being any different in coaching.
Right. And I used to say, I got in trouble for saying this once, but a lot of coaches are chasers. They're chasing the higher level. Like I was a chaser. I coached at a low community club, and I always wanted to coach in the DA and the ECNL. So I went to an ECNL and a DA club, right? Then I was like, you know what? I really want to play Division One or coach Division One soccer. So I went, and I at University of Detroit, and I coached there for 2 years. And then I was like, you know what? I really want to coach pro. And so I went to the NWSL and Western New York Flash, and I was a pro coach for a time. And the chasing and the not being patient, almost, and this not being like almost in the moment, and being like, you know what, I'm okay. Because I guarantee you that a lot of these coaches that are walking by, that are on, the academy or the homegrown fields, they want to be on that someday, and they want to be able to coach that level someday. And it's, just always looking for the better job, and it takes us some self-awareness.
Self-awareness is so critical in knowing yourself. And you mentioned in your life you need, I think, happiness, and you need energy, and from that you get that fulfillment. And this, like Andrea mentioned this morning in our speaker series, direction towards your goal, and having a goal to coach at the highest level, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You should have ambition.
Absolutely.
You should have drive. You should have something that motivates you to be the best version and follow that goal. But no two paths are the same, and development is different. But where is the focus? When you start to get too focused on the external, you start to lose sight of the process and the steps in the process that are ultimately guiding you towards that goal. That's interesting. And my development path, I'd say for the first time, really enjoying the job and back to stepping outside my comfort zone, because I could have stayed and been a coach at a very good Division 3 program. I could have been comfortable, but my ideas weren't being challenged. My perceptions weren't being challenged. Now I'm almost in an environment, I'm very, very fortunate every day to be in an environment and surrounded by people and professionals that are top of what they do. And you're learning. It's not just the soccer aspect, it's business, it's marketing, it's really, really talented people around the MLS, and also people in the EFCL license as well. Like top people that you're learning and challenged every day, and that's really what's happening. So I'm really open-minded, loving the role, love what I do, and it's a privilege to play a small piece in a project that I think is going to be very, very beneficial for the game in this country in the long run.
Let's talk about the project. This event. Have you ever compare it to other years? Have you gone to Fest in years prior?
Yeah.
Compare it to this year.
What we're offering, football to me is about people, and it's about community. And when I look around here, families, young kids playing pick-up soccer on the goal pitch, their older brothers or sisters are playing in next academy games. We see the MLS Cup final live. We see the World Cup draw live. I see families and teams enjoying dinner together. I see people coming to the speaker series and engaging in conversations, just the offerings is developed and advanced even in, I think the last, 2 years ago was my first fest, 2023. And the development since then, it's about continuous development, continuous progression, and always finding a way. And we're not afraid to take risks and try things. It's just, if you don't, how do you know? So from here, the environment's top. It's sensational, absolutely sensational.
And the bad rap over the years of the DA and the MLS next is that it's a closed system, and I had somebody say that it's a gated community, or a country club. And being here, I'm not sure I believe that. I think this is a lot more inclusive than what we've had in the past and other leagues and organizations, because I see what you guys are doing with including the academy division. You just said it, the MLS Go, starting at 6, 7, 8. Listen to Luis talk about why aren't people wearing jerseys of MLS teams, like MLS players, rather than a Holland jersey, for instance, right? Especially, so what's really big in Buffalo, where I live, and in Michigan, is flag football. What are flag football teams wearing? They're wearing Kansas City Chiefs jerseys. They're wearing Buffalo Bills jerseys in their league matches. So Luis was like, why don't we have New York Red Bulls be one of the youth teams? And then, you know what I mean? So these youth teams are wearing the uniforms of MLS clubs.
Yeah, creating that connection to the community again. That's the purpose, is meaningful connection. Yeah, between your club, like where are you from, and really taking pride in that is a good point. Absolutely. But yeah, the inclusive piece, very important. I think for us in the coaching education piece, we want the coaches coming and having a good experience, and we want them to share those experiences with others. It's open door. It's open door for anybody that's outside the MLS. Absolutely, and that's the way it should be.
Do you know? I asked Fred this. Do you know of any other country where the league itself is in charge of youth development for a country, in terms of versus the federation, like the FA is really in charge of the whole picture, because of what you guys are doing. You guys might change the world. Think about this. Like, could we see in 10, 15 years, let's say, I don't think this is going to happen. Let's say we win a World Cup. We win the World Cup. Well, then all of a sudden, everybody's going to be copying us. And they're going to be like, hey, the MLS runs youth development in the United States. Okay, Premier League, we need to start doing that. We need to take over and really, you know what I mean? Or am I just ridiculous?
No. I want you to rethink. You said, why not when we win the World Cup?
Okay. That's like a mentality thing that Andrew was talking about.
To shift that mindset when we win the World Cup.
Yeah.
No, to answer the question, what I would say that's different though is, I think where we still might be missing is that other countries are developing their players for their national teams. I still think there's still a mindset of maybe holding, but like, oh, this is my best player. He should be going to a team at the next level. He should be moved to match his talents. We need to keep him, because if we don't keep him, we don't win games, and we're not going to get people to come to our club. I think it's shifting though. I do think it's shifting. In terms of youth development though, the objective is to develop the best possible players that you can for your country. Other leagues, well, you have professional leagues in other countries who have youth academies and they develop those players. The objective is to develop players that eventually they can probably put into their first teams. If they're not making their first team, then they're selling them for profit, or they're selling for a compensation fee, right?
Right.
But there's still that piece of are we developing this player to play for our country. You could make a case there's maybe kind of separating factors like to how that gets done, but unless you have that complete alignment, it becomes tough to do.
Right.
Like what is the I'm starting to think, I'm loving this conversation by the way, I'm starting to think really, really deeply, like Portugal, known for producing what type of players? What are they famous for?
Well, I would say like Figo, right? They like strong but technical. But they're like kind of morphed into very organized, tough, strong. Like they've been known for that, but obviously Cristiano Ronaldo.
Right. It's like
Should be attackers.
skillful.
Yeah.
I think about Scotland. I'm struggling to think about a player who, like wingers that maybe we might start to develop them again. But what I'm saying is, like, countries develop. Is it based on the physical profile of that nation? Like they something.
Well, think about us.
But that's the point.
We used to be the best at goalkeepers, and then something happened. I don't know. It's like Brazil now.
But why? But in terms of the diversity of this country, the nationalities or the ethnicities that are represented in this country, you're telling me you can't find 11 players to put on a pitch who can go compete for a World Cup? It has to be possible. It has to be possible.
I think that's the purpose of kind of opening up the system a little bit. And getting these MLS Next 2 or Academy Division teams in, because now we have less kids falling through the cracks or being left behind, and more eyeballs on them. Like, I was talking to Jordan earlier, and he was talking about how many scouts are here watching homegrown games and watching academy games to maybe make it to RSL. So.
Well, and even Mark, the technology that he's developed with TACA, MLS Next. I mean, if you're a kid that you can video yourself doing some exercises, technical exercises, physical exercises. You can load that and share that and become identified, not just in America but anywhere in the world. It's absolutely unbelievable. You mentioned that the exposure has been higher than ever.
Absolutely, and yeah, what Mark's building and what this is just providing is, it gives me hope again. Like, I don't know, I lost it a little bit. I don't know, 5 years ago, I was like, you know what? It's just not going to happen. Soccer's never going to work here. I'm starting to change. I think I just saw a stat yesterday that more people watch what was it? It was like more people watch soccer here than in like entire continents. Think about that. An entire continent. So we're not known as a soccer nation or a football nation, but we are. We are a soccer nation. We just got to be able to tap into that part of the nation and not close it out and not, keep them out, or we got to find them. And that's another thing Jordan brought up is like, hey, we're not only scouting MLS Next kids, we're also everywhere because we're always just trying to get that opportunity to somebody.
Absolutely. There are players, talented players in this country, but that kind of opening the door to those opportunities, that's what we provide, that's what we have to provide.
Do you think that, I used to always think that, like, the ego in me, it's like, I developed that player, and you know, I'm going to develop, you know, this the greatest team has ever lived. I find joy through my training company. I find more joy developing coaches and helping coaches along. Do you feel that now? And like in what your role is now, like where you enjoy the coaching education part of it more than teams?
It's a tough question. I think there's always a part of me that loves being on the grass, being around the game. But no, it's a legitimate question because, yeah, there's definitely fulfilment and there's definitely satisfaction knowing that the work that we're doing here as a league and the MLS coaching education team and the efforts that we're and the investment that we're putting into coaches, because we know it's worth it. And when coaches come away with a good experience and they're taking away things from the courses that we're offering, and it gives them stuff that immediately they can. I mean, we left the CPD courses on Wednesday, and some of our presenters were receiving texts and lovely messages about how they have seen like almost an instantaneous impact with some of the ideas in their environments. It's fantastic for us. I mean, it really is, and there's, we take a lot of pride in it. We're not perfect by any means. We still want to see this continue to grow and develop, and this community to continue to grow. But we think we're taking steps in the right direction.
What went on at the clinic today? So it was the 77 and the 99. Were you talking more about practice planning, or were you talking about like actual like how to correct and how to stop? So remember the stop, stand still stuff and all that. What did you get into today?
Well, it was interesting, Jason, in the sense that the instructors were implementing the new grassroots curriculum for US Soccer for 2026.
Okay.
So there's been some slight modification based on the feedback of the educators who implemented it last year, and this was the first time I was going through it, so it was interesting for me to understand some of those changes. But what I did see was, the planning process is important, but a big emphasis on player actions. And I think you mentioned it earlier in the talk that the techniques in our game always will remain the same: dribbling, passing, shooting, receiving.
There's only three things you can really do with the ball.
Scan it, yeah. And what it really challenged the candidates, the academy players to look at was, they have a good knowledge of the game, they know how to pass, they know how to dribble, but how do you then again transfer that? So it was looking for player actions. How do those player actions relate to a concept or an idea? So playing the ball, progressing the ball forward. You can dribble, you can pass, you can run, you can shoot, yeah. And observing that as other players having success in what they're doing, but I was able to go in the afternoon session, and the two young coaches who were, and by the way, very, very impressive. I've had to coach in front of my peers and in licensed situations, and it's a pressurised situation, but the humility and the calmness that I saw from these young coaches was beyond their years. Like, if I looked at myself at 16 years old, trying to do that is so admirable. And in terms of that character piece, it was good. And what I saw was first of all the young girls who were there participating in the session, having fun and enjoying it, and getting lots of repetition and contact time on the ball, and the young coaches were facilitating that environment. The final game at the end, the academy players are on the side on the bleachers, like cheering like it's a live game. So these young ladies are playing 5v5 on the futsal court. There's a crowd of like 60 people there, their parents are there. That to me is football. That's why we do this.
And that's it, man. I mean, it's just, it's cliche, but it's beautiful, man. That's why we all got into coaching, I think, right? Is to share our love of the game. And the more that these kids, these players love the game, the more that they're going to want to give back. And it doesn't have to necessarily be coaching. Just have your future son or daughter play. If you just did that, you're growing the game. There's so many, and then that's that culture, and then that's that generational thing that we're talking about. Is like, one of the best things you can do for the game is have kids and make them play soccer. Because then, maybe not next year, but in 20 years, 15 years, nobody has grown as quick as the United States in soccer. Has there?
Well, the accessibility to the game. I mean, I've lived in the US now for 17 years. 17 years ago, the MLS was on the TV. I mean, the Premier League, maybe you would get some channel that you could watch a La Liga game, maybe a Serie A game, but almost every single major league in the world, you could probably find a way to either stream it or to watch it live. So the actual accessibility of the game has never been higher. You look at the social media connects the world. You look at that aspect, and it is a small world, but the actual accessibility of the game has never been higher. You mentioned the MLS, the viewership figures continue to rise and increase, the interest level, the fans coming to the game, and it's something that in the league, we're the gatekeepers, we're the guardians of the game, and it's a big responsibility, and it's one that we take seriously. We're the gatekeepers of the game, and that's an important role.
The first time that I ever watched soccer on TV here was the '94 World Cup.
It takes me back, Jason. I mean, at 7 years old, USA '94, being 7 years old. That was the first World Cup, and it's very surreal being here with you now living in the US, and my wife and my family, my young son born in the US. Like, the next World Cup is coming here. It's almost like a full circle moment. Like, I remember that the US was 5 hours behind. So the games would be kicking off in the afternoon. If it was an East Coast game, and summer holidays, like you would play all day long in Scotland, and you had to be back in to watch the game because the kick-off time would be it'd be a little bit later for us because of the time change. But man, USA '94 was just that. It was like, remember that World Cup like vividly.
It made me fall in love. It made me fall in love with the game. It made me want to be a goalkeeper. Because Tony Meola against Colombia, he was the hero. I was at the Switzerland game in Detroit, USA versus Switzerland, and that was the first point that the United States have gotten in like 50 years, and I was there. And then, and ticket prices. I have the ticket at my studio at home. The ticket prices were like $75. It's like, I wish we had those prices.
I was going to say, I don't think you're going to get a ticket for $75 for the next World Cup.
Do you guys have anything planned? Two questions. Do you guys have anything planned during the World Cup? Is that playoffs? Is that going to be playoffs for MLS next?
I don't think there'll be any. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Could you imagine a watch party like we had for yesterday for the World Cup? That'd be insane. But second question. What was the second question? Darn it. Second question was, what do you think? So we were captivated by '94. What do you think 26 is going to do to these players that are 15 and under?
Well, the acceleration. I mean, obviously, World Cup '94 was the birth of like MLS. I mean, that was born from sort of World Cup '94. But before that, maybe outside of. I mean, there was always a soccer community in the US, but I think USA '94 accelerated that. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But now you have that base that's broader, deeper, the infrastructure, the generational aspect that you talk about, and the interest here for the game.
It's going to explode.
I don't see why it doesn't.
Everybody watches the World Cup. Even my friends that never played soccer hate soccer. Literally, they actually hate soccer. Not just a TV show or a podcast. You know what I mean? They watch it and they fall in love with it, and for a time, and then they just go back to everything else. But man, I can't.
That's what it does.
It brings the world together.
It does.
Wars stop. Sometimes wars stop because of soccer games sometimes.
Yeah. So it's definitely a uniting of people. It unites people globally. Obviously now we've 48 teams in the new format for the first time as well. Countries you don't ordinarily see there. It's very interesting. So really excited for it. It's just around the corner. Can't wait.
Luis was talking about like developing fans of the MLS, developing fans of the game in general, and we talked about like developing players, developing coaches is a bigger impact. Maybe developing fans is the biggest impact that you can have, and I think that's what you guys are trying to do.
The fan aspect, and that's why you have to start so young with the kids and capture their imagination, because they're going to be your fans for life. You know, those are that's what you really want to capture them is when they're young and you have that passion towards it. Become lifelong fans of the game.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure. Thank you for asking me. Real pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
The conversation.
And the ball.
Yeah. Good first touch, by the way. Yeah, really appreciative that you asked me on. And,
I mean, I'm learning a ton, and I think that's why. And I hope everybody like watching these are growing appreciation for what you guys are building. And it's still young. It's only 5. This is year 5.
Yeah, well, Next is very much in its infancy.
Right, and people think that, like, well, MLS Next just took over DA. It's not true. It's completely. There's some similarities and stuff like that, but it's different. I think.
Yeah, look, we can only really speak for what we're doing. Try to do it the best way we can, to continuously evolve. Try to impact as many people as we can in a positive way, and like I said, we're not afraid to take risks because that's where the growing is going to take place, and it's just a great thing to be a part of and be involved in a group of people with that mindset to drive the game forward.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Jason, pleasure. Great talking to you.
Absolutely.
I hate soccer.